All right, let's try out this motion here. We go. And this is where we have come so far. Ooh, hit the tripod. This is actually a cool feature with using this, using the AI in the gimbal to track around on Big Bad Dr. Doom. Oh, all right. And see, it'll even do it as I put it back into the... Now, this is actually insanely awesome. All right. Let's angle this a little bit better here. Alrighty. So here's what we've got. Let me see. I can actually disable the AI thingy. Okay, we'll figure it out. But here's where we're at currently. I actually have not yet attached the head fully, which is kind of interesting because I just freaked the AI out with that. So here's where we're at so far. I've gotten the upper torso combined and fused together as best as I can. I actually commented, and the developer actually asked about it because I had my biggest struggle with getting it, and you'll see it in some of the seams here and here. Let me adjust the camera a bit so you can see better. Stop it. Okay, the AI was still trying to work. Okay. So you can see the seams here. This isn't actually that bad, especially since the head's going right above it. And some of these areas I can still kind of sand it. And then once I get a chance to put more filler primer in here, I'm probably just going to actually, now that I'm actually talking about this and thinking about it, I'm not sure. Like getting this area smoothed out a bit will be one thing. And then maybe just trying to do, there's a method that you can use, supposedly that's like combining acetone with like this stuff. And it's supposed to, if you do it right, give you a toothpaste-like texture so you can just brush it on. And that will fill in these gaps. That might work. Because I need to fill these gaps in and where I fused and sanded it. This is not as difficult as, for example, here. I tried to kind of meld it a little bit more, and then we're going to see how much of it can get painted over. Once I have a shot. Oh, I am unsure about that, but one, this is going to be in my house. It's not like I'm putting it out professionally, and my first statue, so there's bound to be issues. Like, for example, I am the idiot who probably should not have started in the, I don't know, upper half of the middle of the statue instead of the base. So that's what I'll be printing next once I get my carbon cleaned up and maintenanced and working again without a massive blowout. This is kind of one of the little issues that I had where you notice it's not exactly level. So I was using, if you got to watch the live stream and see, you can see again the seam here, but this is on the back, so the cloak should cover it up and I shouldn't have to care. This is where the hood should connect, I'm thinking. Yeah, if you watched the live stream, you saw this was a pain to put together, only because I was having to get the cushions underneath it just right. I am not going to start to put the base, the bottom half of this together until I can get the base. Essentially, I'm going to finish this part and obviously finish the head here. Let's see, let me put them back, kind of back here. Can I get the connectors to go right back in or not? Yeah, once I can get into here, oh, that went on so much easier this time. Yeah, you can kind of see, let me zoom in on the neck more, and okay, let's see. I'm gonna move this around here and push him back a bit so you can see it better-ish. Okay, let me see. A little bit closer, please. There we go. Okay. So, if you can kind of see, this is where the seam connects. Now, especially here, we've got a bit more of a gap in. So, I'm going to try and actually get as much... Okay, so my main area is going to be to kind of work through here and get this filled in. Maybe try and figure out a way to reprime it somehow without messing up the rest of it. I probably have some painter's tape around here somewhere just to give it, make it where I can put the paint on again. Wet sand it to a point where it's smooth and looking consistent, a lot more like the helmet. Zoom out so you can actually see the things I'm tapping at. Filmmaker, I am not. At least not yet. But I'm going to try and get it consistent with here. Zoom out a bit more because I've actually got to get where you can see me. Okay. Sand out, smooth all this out where I can get it to a consistency with this. And then I will probably try... This is going to be the tricky part because I can either try and fill it in with... I've got a 3D print pen. Or I can try and just weld it and sand that down in detail with either one of these two guys. Because I got these recently, which have been very handy for some of these finer areas. Though over time you can't get them to come out. But they work great with the wet sanding as well, because I can just dip them or spritz this. Another thing I picked up recently, and I haven't had a chance to try it out yet, are... these guys. They're finer points, but I think it's like one... I don't even think this goes over 300. I think it's like 150 or 180 on one end and maybe 2 to 3 something on this end. But the idea is you can actually do the finer little detail sanding. I actually haven't even used them yet. So you can do the finer little bits here. So I can kind of work on these little parts. So if I can get it welded in, and I got some green paint on here from holding it poorly, so I'll have to figure out how to clean that off. Yeah, I'm gonna have to weld this. I was using the JB weld to fuse it, except I was trying to do so much with this the last time that, well, I welded the top shut, so I've got to buy more. Which sucks, because there's still, these are only about, I had to buy more. Which sucks, because this thing's only about halfway empty. But is what it is. So, I'll bomb this in. I was using the epoxy JB weld, which is why this stuff is fused as well as it has. Trying to do it with an important lesson that I should have learned from my castle, which I'll try and finish that project later. I have to calibrate the filament. It's a stone filament, and I have to work on that one. It'd be nice to finish that. But you can kind of see here. Originally, I had tried to do the stupid thing and use hot glue gun. Do not do that. I don't even know if you should do that with any 3D print, in my opinion. Because, here, for a reference point, let me get it out of here. I started this on my Neptune 4 Max, but then hadn't gotten around to finishing it. But this is a lesson in why you should be very careful with this. You can pretty much see it from here, but if you get close enough, this line here is where I slowly melted it in with a soldering iron because I'd used super glue, which put a massive gap in everything. So up to this point, it has been hot glued, and hot glue cools too quickly, and it doesn't like to spread very much. So you end up getting it it creates a gap, and then you have to either pry it apart or something, which is what I had to do here. And that is why he has a neck problem. Thankfully, I managed to sand it out, and I went back through with the hot glue gun and melted it down, so it kind of melted out the hot with a soldering iron and melted out the hot glue, or melted it down to where it's less noticeable. And then I went through and used a few different things at my disposal to try and get this as minimalized as possible. Let me put the castle back real quick. Go back in. Okay, so that is where I'll be going next. The only other thing I want to do and work on for... Sorry. One second. I'm getting the dangerous noises from the... Okay, there it goes. Sorry, I was getting the dangerous noises from the gimbal, and those are not noises I want to have. Okay, sorry. Zooming. Actually, wait. Zooming in is good. Here we go. So... let me just lower this a bit so you can see in the eyes better. It's actually kind of fun learning all this stuff with the tripod, but it's still a learning curve. But at the same time, I also have to deal with this. No, stop doing that. He wants his food and to be annoying. Isn't that right, Archimedes? Anyway, he's not important. He thinks he's important, but he's not as important as Dr. Doom. Back to Dr. Doom. Alrighty, here we go. Now we get to zoom in on the eyes a bit. So, I've got some new detail brushes in. So what we're going to do here, let me zoom in a little bit. Oh, interesting. Sorry, I've never actually. I'm still learning how to deal with the Black Magic camera, and so apparently, since this is using my Samsung S25 Ultra, I can actually pick which camera lens it uses. So this is interesting. Okay, balance is decent. I'm actually currently using the 113mm 5x zoom. So this is going to be a bit weird for me. I started to do a little bit of the brown. I've got two different coats of brown, and then a brownish red kind of color, a darker red. I'm going to try, and I've never really done flesh tones of any kind on anything other than like tan crayon. And that was in like 3rd grade. So not quite used to this. So I'm going to do kind of maybe at least start with the darker color, because I want to try and see if I can get, if not a decent consistent skin tone, I want to try and get where I can figure out how to paint this and make it look like scar tissue, really, because he's canonically, or at least in some canon, he's actually got scar tissue here. So I'm going to try and get that. Let me get something I can point with easier than my finger. Okay, so what you can see here, like this part I've already gotten. I'm going to try and get there done. I've got to figure out, I'm going to use the detail brushes and finish this before I attach it. But we'll have here, and if a friend of mine can do it, if not, I'll try and get some beads off of Amazon. And tiger's eye might be an interesting touch. I was going to go with an emerald, but apparently his eyes are not green, canonically. They're brown. So, I am annoying to myself like that. I'm going to try and get it, drill a hole right about here is the plan. If I can get one that's about 2 millimeters wide-ish, and drill a hole right here and here as well, and then go in and figure out how to, maybe even if I, instead of using a small drill, I use the hot end on the the tip on the soldering iron and melt away in and try and give him irises. Doubt I'll be able to do any of the other painting stuff. That's lots of delicacy, and my hands are not quite designed for delicacy. And then from there, switch to a different camera here. What was it using before? 6. Okay, there we go. Back to the normal stuff. From there, once I get that together, some of this touched up a bit better, I will attach it to here, and then we'll work on fusing it together. Or I may just wait and do the fusing part at the very end. And while I work on at least getting it to where I have run no risk of dropping it. Or I could just make sure it's bound in there properly. I just worry about damaging the progress that I've made so far while I go ahead and start on the bottom. I've got a cool idea that I'm going to try and put together to actually add a plaque to the bottom, the base of it, that says Dr. Doom plaque. It's a work in progress. First, the printer has to be fixed, but I'm probably going to keep up with... A second here. Oh, wait, I need the other thingy here. Other camera. Okay, so I'm probably going to actually, I'm also obviously going to work on getting the shoulders, even though I'm not sure how much of this is actually going to be exposed. I'll still try to do it anyway, just to remain consistent. And then I've got to get along here, and obviously here. And then I'll start to try and work through the green again, put another coat on, start to clear coat it, and then go from there. It'll be interesting because like the best way to do the clear coat, I could just do it all glossy, but I don't think I will. See how far into this I am. Okay, however, I originally was thinking about doing this every week as far as an update. I'm still trying to do the like hour or so live streams. Obviously the unfortunate issue with my printer is going to cause a slight delay on progress, but I've got plenty to work on just getting this. So as far as these videos will go, it'll probably be every other week for now, just because it takes about that long with what time I have to actually make this happen. Because otherwise it was just going to be the head and then half of this and then half of this, but instead I have the video progress on the entire upper half. But yeah, I'm going to keep working on this, and I'll have an update video every other week, and then splice in some other stuff throughout the week, throughout the month. Excuse me. Yeah, and if by some chance you actually are interested in the live streams, I'm not great at promoting those things or anything, so I don't know if anybody's actually watching them. There won't be one this week because I'm trying to put things together to get with some people to practice for like a huge batch of auditions, and I've just had to replace my microphone. So it's not going to happen this week, but it will be back on next week. And then I have a few other cool videos that are coming up in the near future as well. But yeah, that's it for the current progress on the Dr. Doom statue. It really does look awesome when you get it to this point. The eyes are going to be a bit of a challenge for me, but I'm really hoping the brushes that I've got will work. And then we'll get this together, and it'll really start to look amazing. And I'm also excited about what I'm going to try and do with the base. And that's about it for today, or this time frame, this video. If you like what I'm doing, are interested in seeing more of it, or just hearing me ramble, I don't know, please do the whole like bibbity bobbity boobity, press the buttonies, like, comment, subscribe, that kind of stuff. And I will see you next time. Have a great whatever time zone you're in, everybody. Bye.